you tell I'm in denial?
You can't stay at the top forever.
I was also very surprised when I looked at my phone and saw Joe Girardi dismissed.
Well, I think mine were with common sense.
I think now belongs in the all-time greats top 10.
Boston, I really think only got to this point because of a guy named Chris Middleton being out for the Bucks.
That power play just was unbearable. It was humming.
Man, am I happy. I knew that this was going to happen. I knew he was going to come back.
When I think of New York Yankees now, it's Judge. Probably people in the past when Jeter was coming up.
I would be shocked. A little bit hurt.
Hey, this is Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, TexasFootball.com, and Valley Sports Southwest. You are listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. I am Kevin, and I'm joined by... This is the last super team available, and that works. My super team compatriot, Austin.
Yep. I didn't know that two people could be a super team. I guess we can kind of talk about what is a super team.
Super team.
Yeah. But
dynamic duo.
Yeah, dynamic duo, whatever you want to say. When we have our special guests, especially our newly contracted.
So we are forming a super team.
That's why we signed him. I mean, he obviously helped us get the winner right for March Madness, and go check his signing because we had to secure him after the great year.
Yeah, but it's kind of like he was homegrown, so it's kind of like a Warrior super team.
Yeah, but still a super team.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so this was hinted at an NBA video where we were talking about the finals, correct? And then we kind of got into the super team.
Yeah, it could have been the Monty video. Was Monty Williams fired too early, or the finals video?
Yeah.
Go check out both.
Yes, both great videos. Make sure to stay update on our videos with Twitter and Instagram. Just look up Outsiders Opinions. If not, check another video. I've said it, but I'll say it again. OO_podcast 20 for Twitter. OO_podcast for Instagram. Maybe flipped. I'm terrible at social media. But yeah, so is the super team era dead? And I would say yes.
Definitely. As we knew it. Yes.
Or teams have tried to form super teams, it just hasn't worked out. So when was the last super team that won a championship, in your opinion?
Do you have to think it's a super team in the moment?
Okay. Maybe. I don't know. What's your example?
The Raptors in 18-19 that had Kawhi, but also had Kyle Lowry, who was an all-star that year, but also had Pascal Siakam, who was amazing that season and wasn't an all-star yet until this year, or Fred, who 2 years after became an all-star.
Right.
So looking back, they had the components of it, but on that team, there was only 2 all-stars. Okay. So
yeah, here's my thing, because I think that's the first championship where I think the super team era died. Because to me, that was the team that emphasized depth the most.
That's understandable. But again, they had so many players playing extremely well. Marc Gasol played well on that team. And he was an all-star 2 years previous to that. They just had a lot of depth. They had, let me go to playoffs real quick. They had a lot of guys playing a lot of minutes, which is kudos to them. They had 8 players playing 16 or more minutes.
Dang. But yeah.
They had Serge Ibaka, Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, Danny Green. I mean, it's just a well-built team. Now, like I said, Kyle Lowry was an all-star this year in 18-19. Mm-hmm. And so obviously was Kawhi. But Pascal in the playoffs still averaged 19 and 7.
And he won most improved player, I believe, that year.
Yes, he did. So is it a super team? Is it not? The next year he was an all-star. So, but that team didn't have Kawhi. I'm fine not calling it a super team, but I would understand the combo if someone did.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying too. And yeah, I kind of want to talk about that because to me that's the biggest emphasis on depth, and there weren't so many. It wasn't too big. It wasn't three big stars. It because the super team era, we talked about this in the other video. It started with Paul Pierce, uh, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett. Correct.
Modern speaking, yes.
Modern super team. Yeah.
Some people consider the Lakers back with Kareem and James Worthy and Magic Johnson, 3 Hall of Famers on the same team as a super team, which really it is. But modern wise, because of trades and everything else that happened, it's really started in 07-08.
Yeah. And then it was successful because they won a championship. The Lakers then weren't really a super team because it was only Kobe
Powell.
and
yeah, Kobe and Powell.
Yeah. And then the big one is the Heat, Bosh, Wade, and LeBron, but they lost to a non-super team, greatest playoff run of all time.
Do you want to give your definition real quick?
I think it's
of a super team?
3 or more.
All-stars.
That's a good point. I almost want to say but if I say superstars, but superstars doesn't work because there's a lot of qualifications. Let's go all-star. Because what were Paul Pierce, Garnett, and Ray Allen? Were they all-stars for the past 2 years?
They were all-stars when they were all on the same team.
What about before?
Yeah, they were all great players before.
Because I think that's the history of it. Because we talked about the Raptors. Because I think I like our definition. It's just what makes that Celtics team a super team.
Well, let me ask you this. The 07-08 Nuggets, right? The one that had AI. Who's an all-star, averaging 26.4.
Anthony.
Carmelo. But then Marcus Camby, who wasn't an all-star, but the year before won Defensive Player of the Year, and that year was on first-team all-defense. Led the league in blocks with 3.6. Is that a super team? I mean, these are the questions we're going to have to address as we go.
Video. Yeah, I want to say no. Because to me, they have a defensive
player of the year the year before. And
yeah, he's a defensive specialist. Do you see where I'm going?
Okay, let's go to...
So I have a question for you.
Well, a lot of players are offensive specialists. Can they not be an offensive specialist and be a part of a super team? Like, I don't think... For example, Ray Allen at that time with Boston was not the best two-way player.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. So what a super team or what's a championship team? Let's start there. What you have to have a top NBA player?
I disagree.
Okay.
Because you go to the 03-04 Pistons that had one All-Star on it, and it was Ben Wallace, who wasn't even averaging 10 points per game.
Okay.
So, but I mean, a couple years down the line, they had multiple All-Stars on that team. Just because they finally realized that there's more to basketball, if you get my point. Like Rip Hamilton, I believe in 05-06, they had 4 All-Stars.
Okay.
Let me just fact check that extremely quickly.
Because because the championship
they did.
team
In 05-06, they had 4 All-Stars.
Okay. Because my question was the OKC Thunder with Harden, Westbrook, and Durant a super team?
No.
Okay. Why not?
Harden was a 6th man. He was not even a starter.
Okay, so they have to be starting.
They don't have to be starting, but I don't think Harden was developed enough. If like during those playoffs, he was not the Harden we know.
Okay.
But so let me ask you this. Yeah. So is a team with was the 14-15 Hawks that had 4 All-Stars on the team that year? They had 4 All-Stars. Is that a super team? Or to get a super team mantra, do you have to make a big trade? I think that's really where I think trading is what makes it a super team. Because the Warriors were not a super team Yes, or major signing
because the Kevin Durant Warriors are a super team.
Yeah. Because the Warriors were not a super team until they had KD. Even the 73-9 Warriors were not a super team
because they developed that team. It's just great team building.
Yes, just like the Hawks. Everybody that was an all-star that year was on the team the year before.
Yeah, and I think there has to be a previous level of high playing. So, let's go back to the Nuggets. AI was signed then, correct?
Or
was he traded to the Nuggets?
He was, I believe, traded. Okay. But that was the year before he was traded. In 06-07, he was traded. Well, let me just go to 06-07. Really. In 06-07, they had Melo and Iverson and the Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay.
And they had, holy cow, 7 players averaging 10 points and a guy averaging 9.5. Oh, wait, that guy got hurt. Kenyon Martin got hurt that year. Okay. But they had 7 players averaging 10 points. Marcus Camby, Dene, J.R. Smith, Andre Miller, or Earl Boykins, who only played 31 games. I think he got hurt as well. Allen Iverson and Melo.
So I want to say no, but I'm tempted to say they were a super team.
Defensive Player of the Year and 2 guys averaging 25 plus, I think has to be counted. And it was a mid-season trade.
Oh, okay.
From Philly to I think that has to count. I think it has to.
Yeah.
Because mid-season trade 06-07, AI's traded from Philly to Denver. In 06-07, they had a Defensive Player of the Year, Melo in his prime, AI in the last few years of his prime, still averaging like 25 points.
Okay.
If that's not a super team, I think we need to reinvestigate what we consider it, because you can't get much better than that.
That's okay. Yeah. So I was you've swayed me. They are a super team, but they weren't successful.
True. I think that's why a lot of let me put it this way. Most people get confused with super team because they think a super team has to win a title. Most people, if you ask people what are the super teams, very few people will name teams that didn't win a title. Unless maybe they named the 2021 Nets with Harden, Kyrie, and KD. But that team almost won the finals. If KD's foot was just an inch shorter, that would have been a 3 and would have gone. So they still have playoff success. But still, that it's recency bias as well is a big reason why they named the Nets. But 99% of teams that people say are super teams are teams that have won titles.
Yes.
Because this Suns team this year, that is a super team. Because KD,
absolutely,
Chris Paul, Devin Booker, even though Chris Paul wasn't an all-star this year, that is still what I would dignify as a super team.
Because there's a previous history of success, of high success, high playing ability. Yeah, I never thought about the 06-07 Nuggets, but it qualifies.
A major reason, it's technically the 07-08, which the next year, which is the same team. Both they're basically the same team except Nene leaves. But of those starting 3, the 3, I used to play them 2K all the time. Why? They were in 2K. But AI, J.R. Smith, Carmelo Anthony, Eduardo Nahara, underrated player, Marcus Camby. Like, I had the paint defense, I had Melo, I had AI. Mm-hmm. What else do you need? And that's a super team. The fact that AI and Melo, I think people a little bit overrate Melo. Melo's a great player. But the fact that he played with the Defensive Player of the Year and AI and didn't even make the conference final that year, I believe, is extremely disappointing. That season, they lost in the first round in 5 to the Spurs. Wow. The next year, they didn't win a playoff game. They lost in 4 to the Lakers.
Jeez.
The next year, they do trade. I think this may also count as a maybe they trade for Chauncey Billups that next year.
Oh, okay.
But they don't have... No, it wouldn't be, because they just had Carmelo and Chauncey as those players. But that team went to the Western Conference Final and lost in 6. But the fact that they had a Defensive Player of the Year, AI, and Melo, and won 1 playoff game, like, that's a super team.
Yeah,
but
it just wasn't successful. Yeah.
Extremely not successful.
But I think the thing that caused the super team almost era because it was successful as the Celtics.
True. And I do think that super teams don't always win because they're really not built to. Super teams are, the best way to put this is super teams brute force wins. They're not scheming wins. It's brute force. I'm going to throw as many great players at you as I can without having team chemistry or good coaching or a lot of other stuff. There has to be a lot added to it to truly be a successful super team. Like you need LeBron and D-Wade and Chris Bosh, and eventually they get Ray Allen.
And they need solid depth players because who's the one of the shooters that came?
Shea Battier, Miller.
Yeah. Like you needed solid depth players and you need a third guy. They're trying to outbeat you with talent. And you need, like, Chris Bosh stepped down, or like he wasn't, where he was just doing dirty work.
Well, there's a big, and he was still hitting big shots and averaging some points, but it's just like Kevin Love with the Cavs. Mm-hmm. Kevin Love was a all NBA player before he came to the Cavs, or a like all NBA first team, like almost an MVP candidate if the Timberwolves were better. But when he came to the Cavs, he had a whole new role, and that's definitely a super team with LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love. Like that's easily, and then. I think a big part of it, like a big reason why the Heat almost lost to the Spurs twice and why the Mavs did end up beating them, they're just not built, like I said, they're not built to win. Like you can't, Eric Spoelstra is a great head coach, but that was not proven by what the Heat did between 2010 and 2014.
And just to confirm, that Mavs team is not a super team. Because they had previous All-Stars.
Yeah, technically speaking,
but they were out of their previous
All-Stars. But they, I mean, Kidd would still count because Kidd, I believe, was an All-Star that next year.
Okay.
So Kidd came in as a All-Star talent, and then the year before he made an All-Star game, but he was with the team for a little bit. I would, Kidd still counts because he's still averaging 10, 9, and 6.
Okay.
But he wasn't really an all-star. The only all-star in the team was Dirk. Trading for Caron Butler definitely helped, but I wouldn't consider that. No, I would.
Yeah, I don't view him as a super team, but I just wanted to confirm. Yeah. And it seems like there was that craze. It was Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen. Then Miami does it. They won, and then then the Cavs did it.
Well, I mean, we see the Celtics. Like you look at history, the Celtics in 2007 make that trade to get Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett in the offseason. And then during the regular season, the Nuggets make that trade to get AI. Imagine living in the NBA and all those players are moving around. Right. It's the same year. Yeah. Like that is a crazy season. And then the Nuggets win one game in the playoffs.
That is around the same time. I never thought of it. Yeah. And then it just seemed like after the Cavs and the Warriors after KD left.
It's really the Warriors after KD. We've seen super teams. The Nets in 21.
Yeah.
The Suns this year. I would say that. Is it?
Or the Celtics? No, they're homegrown.
Yeah, the only signing would be Al Horford, who was technically an all-star with the Celtics back in like 17-18, but I'm not going to count that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to count the Sixers. They only have Harden and Embiid.
Yeah, you already mentioned the Nets. Yeah. The Clippers, not a super team. They're a team that tried to get depth, and I don't know how they did not win.
Does Russ not work?
No. Okay, that's fair. I was talking about the initial Clippers when that Paul George and.
But again, is it Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin? They were all stars in 2015-16.
That's good.
But I guess Jordan and Griffin were homegrown.
Yeah.
Paul was brought in, but Jordan was not an all-star until Paul got there. And then you have to look Russell Westbrook with the Lakers with AD and LeBron. I would argue yes, because he just averaged a triple-double the year before with the Wizards.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. And then, no, Rockets, Harden, Chris Paul, there were never three. It's just two.
Yeah, and then there's Dwight Howard and the one was, I think, Pau Gasol, was he on that? The one that tried the Lakers, Steve Nash, Kobe.
Derek Fisher. believe
Derek Fisher wasn't on that team. I don't think he could have been, but I don't think he was.
Which I thought
12-13 Lakers. I'll look it up. I really don't think he was because I know he was on the. He could have been, but I just know that he was on the Lakers the year before. I mean, he wasn't on the Lakers the year before. No, he wasn't.
He wasn't? Dang. Okay.
I think he was still on OKC. But they had Kobe. They had Dwight Howard. They had Steve Nash. They had Metta World Peace. They had Pau Gasol. Yeah, I definitely consider that team a super team. And then you also have everything else with the like I said, the Lakers, not this past year, but the year before that, when they signed Russ, that is a super team because he just averaged a triple-double with the Wizards.
And they were very...
But I would not count the Clippers this year. I wouldn't count that.
Okay.
Mainly because of injuries. But also because even if they were all playing, Russ has been proven to not be himself.
Mm-hmm.
But before he went to the Lakers, he was averaging a triple-double. Like, you couldn't expect him to be as to do as poorly as he did.
And the thing with the super team era, it was you were just so top heavy, and you needed guys to take lower to fill on depth. To me, what signifies the end of it is the 19 Raptors or them being good because they had depth.
There's super teams that had depth. Like those Heat teams had depth. The even some teams that lost ended up having depth. Like I said, the 06-07 Nuggets had 7 people averaging 10 points per game. 7.
That's true. And then do you consider the Bucks that won? Because you had Drew Holiday, you had Chris Middleton, and you had Giannis.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a super team. Okay.
I think I'd have to.
Yeah. So they were successful. Ooh.
Yeah. But I do think, or if it's not over, it's at least much harder. And the thing is about those Bucks teams, they were also deep as well.
Yeah.
Like, even after injuries, they still had PJ Tucker. They still had guys getting they had Bobby Portis playing extremely well in the playoffs. Yeah. Let me see who else. They had Pat Connaughton. They had let me bring this
DiVincenzo? No.
DiVincenzo's hurt.
Okay. Yes,
but they had PJ Tucker. They had Bryn Forbes. It's really PJ Tucker, Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis. Like, those are obviously not your stars, but you need those guys.
So was Ayton, Paul, and Booker a super team? Okay.
No. Ayton, I don't think he's ever been an all-star.
Oh, really? But yeah, to me, with now, like, if I want to win the NBA, I need a top 5 NBA player, maybe top 10. And then I need a second guy who's a star.
Or you need to do it based on team. I think that's kind of how we've seen a team like the Heat build themselves, as Jimmy's not a top 5 player.
Yeah. But they've made it to the finals. They just haven't won one.
Yeah. I mean, but when you make it to the finals, you have a chance of winning. Like,
yes, it's true.
So another team that I think is going well, the Mavs are trying to build some pseudo team.
Here's what I think the Mavs are trying to do.
Like, you heard all the LeBron talk.
I know, but that's because Kyrie's going to go to LA, and that's the way LeBron is getting Kyrie to the Lakers. But so here's my thing is what the Mavs are trying to do is they've never had that second star. When Jalen Brunson was there, he was not who he was. He was not that second star. I would have still signed him and done everything because he, to me, was a quality role player. And I think with Luka it worked. And
I'm just saying they just keep trying to like KP, like Kyrie, like even signing Christian Wood, who is proven to be a 20-point per game scorer.
But I think with no matter what, you need at least a second guy to do well.
In today's, yes.
Yeah, in today's.
Because who was the second guy on those Pistons? Who was the first guy on those Pistons? Like, it just, everybody mesh. In the starting lineup, every player meshed into one. Like, I would argue Ben Wallace was better, but you could argue Chauncey was better. One of those two is number 1. But the number 3 is Rip or Rashid or Tayshaun. It just all mixes together because they're so good. Like, who's the number 2 on those Mavs teams?
I was about
Is
to
it
say
Tyson
that.
Chandler?
Yeah, I was about to say Tyson Chandler.
Who's great
That's my thing.
Or was it Jason Terry? Or was it Sean Marion?
I
have no idea who was number 2 on that team. Jason Kidd even played well in the playoffs. So who's number 2? I have no idea.
So there's one magical run where a team can go on a magical run and win it. It's just
the Mavs was not as magical as people seem. The reason why they fell off the year after is because Mark Cuban hates Dirk.
Oh, yeah. No, but it was, I don't want to say magical, but it was one of, like, it was unexpected.
Unexpected, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And it's an outlier.
It is.
From all the other
it wouldn't be if the Mavs decided to re-sign the players that were the reason why. Again, Mark Cuban loves Dirk. I'm only saying that because he ruined every last chance that Dirk had at another ring. Like, Tyson Chandler was huge during the playoffs. Let's just not re-sign him. I never understand that. He literally was what LeBron James struggled because of Sean Marion guarding on the perimeter, but if he went to the paint, Tyson was there. And the fact that you went away from that, I don't get it. I don't get it. They tried to get Dwight Howard is what they tried to do.
Yeah, no. Mark Cuban wanted to go so flashy. You should have just signed him for 1 year. And maybe he was worried about them getting too old, but you should have just put the band back.
No,
together.
Tyson was young. Tyson was not old. That's the thing. Like, how old do you think Tyson was? I guess you're going to think he's younger than me.
I want to say he was 29 or 30.
He was 28.
Okay.
The next year, in 11-12, he is an all-NBA player and a defensive player of the year. The year after he leaves. The year after that, he's an all-star. His best 2 regular seasons are the years after. If Dirk had that Tyson, they're probably in a serious spot. Serious spot to becoming another, to becoming almost a pseudo-dynasty. He played 1 year in Dallas and then went back eventually in 14-15, and he was good. But he was not the same. And you pair, it just was weird what they did. And again, maybe, but that's the thing. We're talking about super teams. Mark Cuban wanted a super team. He wanted Dwight Howard.
Yeah, exactly. And a super team is flashy names too. And I just think teams are trying to do it, but that's just not a way to be a team. You do, like the Bucks had to trade for Drew Holiday, and that he was a key piece. But you need to have homegrown talent. But you also need assets to go get a piece that you can't find through the draft or have failed to find through the draft.
Let me put it this way. 99% of the time, your best player, when you win a title, has been with the team for a long time. Usually.
Yes.
Usually. Not LeBron, not Kawhi.
Because look at LeBron. When he leaves, they're devastated.
That's because they blow up the team. Yes. But also, besides LeBron and Kawhi, Giannis was there for a long time. Then you have what is his name? Why am I stupid? Who won the title last year? The Warriors. Everybody for the Warriors was there for a long time. And then 2018, your best player, I still think is, we talked to Tim. He thought the most important player will still say is Curry. And then you go back to the Spurs. Most important player has been there for a long time. Whether you think it's Parker, Duncan, even Kawhi, all there for a long time. And then you go, even before that, you go to the Mavs, play for a long time. You go to the Lakers, you go to the Celtics. Arguably, their best player was Paul Pierce, who'd been there forever. It's rare that your best player clearly is from another team. And what other teams are trying to do is trade for that big player. Like we saw that with Minnesota when they tried to trade for Jimmy Butler. Like they had Andrew Wiggins, they had Cat, and they were trying to build a super team with Jimmy Butler. Like that was the entire point.
Mm-hmm. You need to have a good stable build. You need a good foundation. You can't build that foundation. You can't do what the Nets did and try to sign KD and Kyrie and then trade for Harden. That just doesn't work. You need someone there. You can go trade for that third piece, or like with the Nuggets, they got because the Nuggets team has been together for a while. You drafted Jokic, you have Murray, you have those two guys, and then MPJ was drafted. That was a long shot because of the injury, but that he had coming out of college, but then they traded for Aaron Gordon, who's really helped in this playoff push or in this championship push.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So yeah, the super team era being successful, I believe we can say is dead.
As we knew it before, yes.
As
you can still build it, but you can't be trading for a LeBron.
Yeah, you can't sign all guys in an offseason or trade for two main guys.
Especially not a top 5, top 10. You can't trade for a top 20 NBA player anymore and consider it. Like, Jrue Holiday was not the finished piece. Like, he was not even, I don't think, coming into the trade, especially, and during that finals run, Chris Middleton was better than him, and he was he wasn't homegrown because they traded for him from the Pistons, but he was with the team for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. I think he was that third guy that they needed.
Yeah, I think you can trade for a third guy
that's
unquote make a quote unquote make a super team, but you cannot trade for a top 2.
You can't trade for the second guy, which is what the Mavs were trying to do.
Yeah, or a first guy for that matter.
Yeah. So yeah, you can trade for any guy after the second.
Yeah, and that's what we saw with Aaron Gordon now with the Nuggets.
Yep. And maybe the Heat do something, we'll have to see. But yeah, I think we've answered it, or we've tried to answer it. We'll definitely revisit it. Let us know what y'all think. Any final thoughts, Austin?
No. I'm glad we're through the average used to be trade for like a KD or a Harden and it work out to automatically winning a title. I'm glad we're past that. And I do think teams have now schemed against it. And it's really hard to win titles now as a super team because, again, you're trying to brute force it, and basketball's not a brute force game.
Yeah, I feel it's a lot more complicated, and it's something that makes it tough for us to go, oh man, they won the trade, but actually the team actually did this, which I think is just very fun analyzing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll still have to look back at it after to see how the Suns do next year, but I'm already thinking the Nets won the KD trade.
Yeah, and they just got so much. And it's so tough right now. It seems like there's so much. It's an asset, how many assets you have, and the teams that trade away get so many assets back.
Yeah, if you don't win a title immediately, it's really hard for you to recoup the losses.
Yeah, so that's all we got. Maybe we'll do a future video on that. We don't know. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.